Wow. Try to get this to work, and what do you know? It worked. Um, this is the first stream, and I'm going to be trying to look down here at the chat to see if anything comes up. And just want you to know that this is, well, it's my first time back after a long time. And so, going to be trying to do my best. This is an infomercial for my company. Um, and so I'm trying to get out here and talk about the things that I write about all the time, that I do all the time, that I've done for what, 35 years now. So talking about performance and systems and all of that great stuff. This being the first one, I think I'm going to talk about, well, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I think maybe I'll talk about Sasha Zverev, because Mr. Alexander Zverev choked. Um, and I don't want to say this in too negative a way, but I talk a lot about mental toughness and mental performance. And he showed weakness in that area to the nth degree. He just, I don't know. You could tell that he cracked. That he was still talking about it after the match. That talking about Alcaraz had cheated, and I need to take these things off because I can see well enough without them, and glare of lights ends up in them. So, gonna take them off. But when Alcaraz was cramping in the third set, Zverev just needed to keep playing. I think it's one of the most common mistakes that players make when the person at the other end is having some kind of physical ailment. They're more worried about, is the player going to continue? If there was any gamesmanship, it was maybe when Alcaraz acted like he was going to walk to the net and shake hands and then didn't, kind of waved it off. And so maybe there was a little gamesmanship there, but it was really irrelevant because he didn't win the set. So I want to say, if there was anything that was a problem, it was probably resilience on Zverev's part, that he was still thinking about it well into the match. He had a couple times that he was serving for a set and he was serving for the match and he cracked. And that is definitely a mental toughness. So got to figure out, well, then what changed at that point in time? How did his performance state alter from where it had been when he was playing well? Well, I think he went back to that place that he was at in the third set and what was happening during the changeover and the medical treatment, and thinking that he was being cheated in some way, when in fact he wasn't being cheated. Or maybe even if he was, what did it matter? He won the set. He won the next set. Now we're in a fifth set, and Alcaraz had done exactly what you should be doing if you were dealing with cramps, which is, take in his case, pickle juice, but sodium, electrolytes, and then try to keep going, try to weather the storm, get the cramps to go away, give him a chance. He gave him a long chance, and you could see it coming back in the fourth set, where all of a sudden he was moving a little better. And yeah, by the end of the fourth set, he was back in full flight. And then it was just a matter of, we got to play. We got to do what we need to do. I suspect for Zverev, he was, I don't know. I don't want to say this because it's not great advice, but it's certainly something that I have done, which is said to a player, if you're getting croaked in a set and you're running out of gas, then, maybe to a degree, tank that set. But the key to tanking the set is you've got to get back and you've got to be playing at full flight again before the end of the set, because you can't wait and then say, okay, I'm going to come back, I'm going to play the tiebreaker, I'm going to come back, I'm going to play the third set, and think that you're going to be able to turn it right back on again. No, your body will be in a state of performance, which is tank mode. and you need to get it back into perform mode. So at some time before that's over, get it back. Zverev didn't do that. He was basically saying, I'm going to watch Alcaraz hit winners. I'm not in here. I'm not competing. I think that he can't do this. He obviously could. He came out even when he wasn't playing. He did what, unfortunately, I've had some coaches that weren't really good at working with young players because they just clowned the young players. And almost looked like that's what Alcaraz was doing with Sinner, was he was just clowning him. He would, hit a drop shot. He'd kind of take and flick a ball into a corner, or another slap a ball. And they were going in enough that he was staying pretty competitive in the match, which is probably what gave him enough heart to say, I can keep going. I can keep doing this. Zverev, I don't know. He cracked serving for the match. What happened right there? Is it something that, as I said before, he went back to thinking about something that had previously happened, and I've been cheated, and maybe went to a place of relief. I'm finally here after all this nonsense. I'm finally at the place where I got this match. Okay, now he went from past to now he's in the future. He was like, okay, I've got this. This is mine now. And instead of, I think John McEnroe said it. I don't remember. I think he talking about one of the slams, but he was playing, I believe, Connors in the semifinals, and he reached that place where he knew he had the match, and he went to the future. And then he said, I just knew it. I was going to be playing Borg in the finals. And before he knew what happened, he was watching Connors play Borg in the finals. And so from that point forward, he created something where he made himself think he was behind, even when he was ahead, so that he continued to keep fighting, keep having all of those places where he was mentally tough. Zverev couldn't do that, and maybe that's why he is the greatest player to have never won a major. Is that a coaching thing? I think it's a coaching thing, but I think it's a coaching thing that needed to happen long, long, long time ago. With the things that I do with mental toughness, and I think they're important, but I think they're long-term learning things. I don't think you take a pro player and you put them through the things that I'm doing. I think that has to already be in there. I think it would take too long for Zverev to go through the process, have it go from where he is right now, which is he probably doesn't even know that he can't do it, to where the light bulb comes on during a debrief. And then he's like, oh, woe is me, but okay, I'm going to fix this. And then he has to go through the process of fixing it. And then he gets to that point and he's like, okay, my process that I have, is it holding? Is it working? Is it now he's in conscious competency? And so getting to that last phase where it's just happening, he's not even aware that it's happening anymore. And he's certainly capable of that, right? He did it with his serve. If you remember back a few years ago, he had the yips on his serve where he was hitting second serve aces because he didn't believe he had a second serve. So he was just using two first serves, double faulting a bunch, hitting second serve aces, all that. Now he is arguably the best server on tour, if not the best, one of the very best. Yet at two critical moments, second set, serving for the set, and in the final set, serving for the championship, his serve let him down. What changed? Nothing changed in his mechanics. Nothing, anybody that thinks that somebody raises their game in big moments doesn't really understand performance. Alcaraz didn't raise his game in those moments. What happens in those moments, which makes it look like somebody raised their game, is the other person's performance drops. So if both players are operating right here on a normal basis, one doesn't go up in those critical moments, the other one drops a little bit, and it makes it look like this player raised their game, but it wasn't. It was a drop here. And that's what happened. Alcaraz cracked. Um, and why did he crack? Well, that's going to happen during his debrief. When's that debrief going to happen? Who knows? After losing the women's final, I saw an interview with Sabalenka, and they asked her when she was going to debrief, and they were talking about maybe in an hour, and it was like, no, maybe in a week, and that was her take, because after that kind of a loss, you can't kind of go back at it in an hour and look at it objectively. There's too much emotion clouding what's going on right there. So, it'll be a week's time for Sabalenka. For Zverev, who knows when he's going to be ready, right? So the narrative around him is best player never to win a major. That's undoubtedly in his head at this point in time. He's been asked about it so many times. How can it not be in his head? But it's something he's got to fix. Got to do the debrief. Maybe the fix isn't something as long term as what I do with IEDE, which is really a long term thing, which should be starting with kids as soon as they become, well, tennis becomes a thing that they're digging into, not an exclusive thing, because there's always education, and there may be other things as well that they're digging into. But the process of IEDE, so I being intention, E being so what do you want to have happen? And then E being experience, so going out and actually doing it. And then D being debriefing, figuring out what actually happened. And that's what we're talking about right here. And then the E at the end being evolution. How do you evolve because of the experience? That's a big rock. And so I have a display that I used to have on the counter at the tennis center, which it's a vase, and it has some big rocks and some pebbles, and in this case, some marbles or some marble-ish type things, and then sand. And you got to get everything to get in there. You got to put the big rocks in first, and then you put the pebbles, which fill in around the big rocks, and then you put in the sand that fills in around into all of the crevices. IEDE is a big rock. It should be put in from the very beginning, and it's a transferable skill. It will transfer to life for forever, but it also transfers into whatever other activities that somebody's digging into. So it may be violin, and so you're trying to sit first chair, or maybe you're working to be captain of your team in every sport in high school. So that process goes in at a preteen level, so 10, 11, 12 years old. That's when we start working it, so that by the time we get to that place where someone's entering high school, it's in there at the unconscious competence level, that you do it, you don't even think about doing it anymore. And to actually tell somebody how you do it, you'd have to go back and recount the steps in order to explain it. I think that's what Zverev has to do, is he has to go back and recount the steps. Somebody needs to put him inside of a founder's room, or the founder's room part of a court for RB, and like make him sit immersed and watch that match. It's going to hurt. And he's going to want to tap out and say, okay, I've seen enough. I've seen enough. I've seen it. No, every single minute of it, sit and say, what is happening right now? Maybe, if we're talking about what I mean with Founders Room and Court 4 RV, at that point in time, hook him up to stuff, because there's no wearables allowed on court, right? So we can't take and be hooked up to heart rate monitors and measure our perspiration and all of those things. But we can in a debrief situation. And so hook them up to everything you can think of and get the feedback, know exactly what was going on with him at that point in time. Because if you put him in the right immersive situation, he will re-experience exactly what was going on. He'll know exactly what happened when he started freaking out and believing that, well, Alcaraz was cramping and so therefore he shouldn't get a medical timeout. And then see, well, how did that change his biochemistry and his physiology? And then look to see how long did it stay changed? Did it come back to normal pretty quick, and that got him through a little bit of maybe the fourth set, and then on into the fifth set, and then at some point in time it cracked again and it went back to the same place. So figure out what happened. There's a process for doing that, and if anybody would like their child to be involved in the process of becoming unconsciously competent at that whole loop of intention, experience, debriefing, and evolving, um, reach out to me because that's what I do. It's a system that I created and I know it best, but I've put it out there for you while I'm putting it out there for you, so that you can try to do it yourself. It's not um, something that is impossible to train someone to do, but not easy for someone to do. So you can probably do it yourself with your kid. You can have your coach figure out how to do it. But the best way is to come to me because I invented it. I know it. I'm unconsciously competent at IEDE because I've been doing it for 20 some odd years. So that's all I got for this first one. It took me a while to get into it, but it's been fun. There was nobody in the chat today. Why? Because I didn't tell anybody where it was going to be. So that's okay. I hope you have a wonderful day. And how long did I go? Yeah, I said I was going to go about 20 minutes. Been about 20 minutes. So that's all for today. I will see you next week. Peace.